Hey everybody, this is Sarah Jones on the Politicus Pod for Politicus USA's The Daily. Make sure you subscribe to our Substack so you don't miss any episodes. Today we're going to be talking about something a little difficult. I want to give a little warning out. We're going to be talking about sexual assault. About last night, Trump and CNN's wanton disregard for E. Jean Carroll and women around the United States. Martin Luther King said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice." And for a brief moment on Tuesday, women basked in the long-delayed validation that came from a few of them finally being believed about Donald Trump after a jury of his peers found him liable for sexual abuse, battery, and defamation. E. Jean Carroll, Lisa Birnbach, Jessica Leeds, Natasha Stoynoff, and more. These women gave women and girls around the country that long-delayed but important gift of validation. Lisa Birnbach told me on Twitter, "It has meant a lot to me that we were believed." I think that resonates for women around the country. Part of the judgment against Trump in the Carroll case found wanton disregard, that Carroll had proven her case with clear evidence that Trump displayed actual malice in his defamation of her. Wanton disregard is a legal term expressing an individual's extreme lack of care for the well-being or the rights of another individual. And I don't think anything describes Donald Trump more than wanton disregard. Willful and wanton disregard means the deliberate and conscious indifference to the safety of others. Law Insider defines it that way. So this resonates for women around the country who have known since Trump was elected that they were not believed or even deemed worthy of being respected by way too many in this country. But then on Wednesday evening during the CNN town hall, despite a photo of them being together, Trump repeatedly denying even knowing Carroll. "I don't know her. I never met her. I have no idea who she is," he said. The CNN town hall audience showed the country just who Trump supporters really are, as they laughed as he made fun of Carroll's claim. Laughing at a sexual battery victim as she's being defamed yet again, this is who the movement is. And CNN knew that going into the town hall. They chose to do it anyway and allow him to broadcast his humiliation of rape and assault victims around this country because the mocking of one is an echo of the mocking done in communities around the country when a victim speaks up. The CNN town hall harmed women around the country. Again. Trump also bragged about taking the rights away from women to decide our own destiny and control of our bodies, just like a sexual predator would want to do. Getting rid of Roe v. Wade was an incredible thing for pro-lifers because it gave pro-life something to negotiate with. For 50 years this has been going on. I was very honored to do it, he said. Trump was happy to take credit for appointing the Supreme Court justices who then took our freedom away from us, as sexual predators desire to do, taking away our rights, taking away our dignity, and taking away our control of our destinies. Trump's lies weren't fact-checked effectively, as he steamrolled CNN's Caitlin Collins, who appeared to have been maybe sacrificed by her employer on the Trump altar, or maybe she willingly let Trump amplify his lies about the 2020 election, January 6th, call a black police officer a thug, and more. The CNN town hall was gasoline on what had been a smoldering fire, but it's been reignited now. The lies blasted to Trump supporters are cult Kool-Aid. People who were put off by him recently got a big dose of the Trump pipe, and they won't be putting it down anytime soon. Dear Leader is back. taking up all of the oxygen and giving them the dopamine hits of being, quote, winners who ride roughshod over everyone else without a moment of humanity to disrupt the sick pleasure taken in hurting others. Maybe we're coming full circle and this is just the dirtiest part of the path right before it gets cleaned up. But just one day before this excruciatingly mistaken venture by CNN, Donald Trump was found liable by a jury of 9 people for sexually abusing E. Jean Carroll in a Manhattan department store in the 1990s, a case she was able to bring in part through the new New York Adult Survivor Act. It took a lot of bravery and fortitude for Carroll to bring her case forward, including the courage of other witnesses who testified. The Access Hollywood tape was a key player in Carroll's case, and that very tape is how we began this journey that led women to feeling so dehumanized, diminished, and demoralized. Ever since the Access Hollywood tape didn't matter following its October 2016 publication, a lot of women knew that Trump routinely did this to women, and even worse, that it didn't matter to our fellow citizens. They had elected a man who bragged about sexual assault and treated the women who came forward to accuse him, I believe it's 26 at this count, of sexual misconduct of varying degrees, as if they were trash, not even worthy of basic dignity and decency. No other political candidate for president would have dared show his inhumanity so brazenly. But as we heard again last night during the CNN town hall, Trump's audience loves his cruelty. They find it funny. They see themselves and are relieved to not have to hide their worst traits. Everything that followed after the Access Hollywood tape was barely a blip in Trump's journey to the White House. And it just proved again women's diminishment. It was clear that to women, that he had said it in his own words on tape, and yet the populace just shrugged. Once he was elected, his White House claimed his election proved that the American people didn't consider sexual misconduct allegations to be an issue worthy of discussion. In 2017, after several women came forward on television to share their sexual abuse, assault, harassment experiences with Trump, then White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee used his election as proof that the allegations didn't even warrant consideration. As if some people voting for Trump erased the possibility of his abuse and assault against women mattering at all. Not that it didn't happen, but that it didn't matter that it happened. The people of this country, she said, at a decisive election supported President Trump, and we feel like these allegations have been answered through that process. Well, the allegations clearly weren't answered through that process. They were ignored and overridden, but they were not answered. The women who had come forward before his election spoke up again after it as part of the Me Too wave and pointed out that it hurt to have their fellow citizens just shrug in response to their experiences. Miss USA pageant contestant, Samantha Halvey said in 2017, "We're private citizens, and for us to put ourselves out there and show America who this man is, and especially how he views women, and for them to just say, meh, we don't care, it hurts." And now it's just like, okay, let's try round 2. The environment's different. Let's try again. So even now, after 6 men and 3 women found him culpable, Trump supporters, including Republicans in the U.S. House, are saying, and this is a paraphrase here, it didn't happen, she's a liar, she lost because she wasn't able to meet the burden for definition of rape. The latter is absolutely a ludicrous claim given his history and his own words where he has admitted sexual assault. It's also disturbing that the definition of rape clearly includes penetration by body parts, and yet this jury thought that rape hadn't been established. The penetration, no matter how slight, of the vagina or anus with any body part or object, or oral penetration by a sex organ of another person without the consent of the victim. That's the definition of rape. But this was a civil trial, and in a civil trial, the jury is required to reach a unanimous verdict. And so it could have been just one person who believed that, it didn't qualify because it may have been his fingers and not any other body part. But women apparently have to argue that this actually happened and that it actually matters. Because it didn't matter enough to CNN to even bring it up at the beginning of the town hall, let alone cancel their amplification of Trump's lies and attacks on democracy. Whatever went into the decision by CNN to amplify a known Gish Gallop gaslighter propagandist, it has done irreparable damage to the tenuous agreement of facts upon which democracy rests. And it has once again told women, you don't matter. Networks will platform and give free ad space to a man found liable of sexual battery and defamation which he repeated during this town hall, as everyone knew he would. Never once in Trump or his camp's response to sexual misconduct accusations, and there have been a lot of them, did they ever acknowledge the humanity of the victim. Instead, they chose each and every time to belittle the victim, to make sure she knew she was held in contempt and was useless and worthless, that whatever pain drove her to speak up was a joke and would be weaponized against her. Even in his own defense, Trump never said he would not rape someone. Wouldn't an honorable man say in his defense that he's not the type of man to rape a woman, rather than say she's not the type of woman he would rape? But one of Trump's go-to defenses is to claim that the woman isn't attractive enough to rape, which suggests that rape is acceptable to him, but that he wouldn't deem this particular woman worthy of rape. Naturally, that too is a lie. In his videotaped deposition, sorry, there's a lot of noise here, and I don't have a producer for my podcast. This is of the people, by the people, for the people. Just little old me. So I'll start that again. In his videotape deposition, Trump confused a photo of E. Jean Carroll from the time period of the assault as being his ex-wife, Marla Maples. So even what he said about her not being his type is a lie. And again, he never said he wouldn't rape someone. In fact, in the deposition, when asked about the Access Hollywood tape, in which Trump is heard bragging to Billy Bush, when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. Grab them by the pee. You can do anything. Trump answered, well, historically, that's true with stars. If you look over the last 1,000,000 years, I guess that's been largely true, unfortunately or fortunately. Yes, he did say that, unfortunately or fortunately. And also, we haven't had stars, media stars, for 1,000,000 years. But that's Trump. Every word he says is an exaggeration, a lie, a deflection, some kind of gaslighting. Sexual misconduct, sexual battery, sexual assault is allowed, unfortunately or fortunately. That's the front runner for the Republican ticket in 2024. Of the women who came forward in the E. Jean Carroll civil court case and those who came forward publicly after the Access Hollywood tape, and again after he was elected, the stories are eerily similar. They actually match exactly what he bragged about on the Access Hollywood tape. He grabs, He forces himself on. He treats women like a piece of meat. That's a quote. As one former beauty contestant said of her experience with Trump, he would step in front of each girl and look you over from head to toe like we were just meat, like we were sexual objects, that we were not people. The dirtiest I ever felt in my entire life. And of course, Trump's first wife, Ivana Trump, accused him of rape in a 1990s divorce deposition that was later included in a book, only to recant it later, saying she didn't mean it as criminal rape. In 2015, yes, 2015, not that long ago, his lawyer defended this by incorrectly saying, "You cannot rape your spouse." I think I don't need to tell you that that's not true. As if women's bodies are here for Trump and his ilk to violently use and abuse however they see fit. This is the height of dehumanization, which isn't a surprise given how these same people treat every other vulnerable political minority. We are focused today on his treatment of women because of the E. Jean Carroll case this week, and because too often the mainstream media ignores the most important point about sexual abuse. Sexual abuse is about power. It's done by someone who needs to impose power over others. And that is why it is so relevant to the character of a person seeking high office. The crossover between people who sexually assault women and those who are violently racist and bigoted is very high because it all comes from the same psychological pathology. It says, at the very least, this person cannot be trusted with power. They shouldn't be given power. They will abuse power. The same day that the jury found for E. Jean Carroll, a judge tossed the Maryland Manson defamation claim against Evan Rachel Wood, but only in a tentative ruling. And another thing that came to light via a PBS documentary was a college classmate who heard Clarence Thomas say the same gross thing about the Coke can that he denied saying to Anita Hill, who is one of the first trailblazers of women bravely coming forward to share their experiences about the fitness of a man being considered for tremendous power. Jane Mayer shared on Twitter, "Remember that lewd line about the Coke can that Clarence Thomas denied under oath, saying to Anita Hill? Watch his college classmate describe how he heard Thomas say it too." I've linked to the PBS episode on our Substack, and I highly recommend watching it. Take this stuff in pieces as you can, because it is overwhelming. It's disgusting. It's gross. The abuses and corruptions of power at the highest levels of our government are all coming to, maybe not all. Well, I'm sure they're not all coming to light, but a lot of them that we've known about for decades are coming to light right now. And it's a lot to take in. It's demoralizing, but it's also good to focus on the fact that it is coming to light. Clarence Thomas's sexual harassment being ignored as not relevant or even true paved the way for Brett Kavanaugh, who has been credibly accused by several women of sexual misconduct. And from the stories told, it seems like gang rape or gang sexual assault was also on the menu. This man, along with Clarence Thomas, took women's rights to live away from them when they overturned Roe versus Wade. Because unfortunately, being denied access to an abortion can be a life-threatening situation, a life-threatening medical situation for women. And we have seen that play out, unfortunately, even with women who wanted their pregnancy. It was predictable, in fact, that those men would do this, and that's why those questions were asked, at least of the Trump appointees. It was predictable they would do this because, again, men who sexually abuse women do it for the control and power. Removing the agency of women to determine their own futures and to have basic control over their bodies is exactly what those kinds of men want. It's also important to point out that most men do not sexually abuse women. For every man who claims that this is normal, and who is saying even today that this is locker room talk, there are many more men who would never behave this way toward a woman or a young girl. So it's a big mistake for men to identify with sexual predators, thinking that they too might be accused, when actually it has taken numerous women coming forward against each of these men to even make news. Not one of these women has destroyed these men's lives. These men are all in tremendous positions of power, even today. If a person is defending Trump or Clarence Thomas or Brett Kavanaugh, it should serve as a warning about what kind of person they are. Most men do not act this way, but too many men excuse it by identifying with it on the surface because they do not understand the ugliness and the violence behind these accusations. They don't understand the ugliness and the violence of those accusations. These are not casual, hugged you too long, or complimented a woman gone wrong moments. These are moments of calculated, cruel, and harmful violence and humiliation perpetrated upon people with less power. If you think about the patriarchy as it actually is, which isn't just men versus women, the patriarchy, the system of patriarchy, is a system of power. It's a hierarchy. And at the top, the only people who are going to remain unscathed by it are people with tremendous wealth, who are white, who are men, who are straight, and who are in a very elite clique at the very, very top. Most people don't fall into that group, so identifying with it in hopes that you're one of them. If you're listening to this podcast, you're not one of them. None of us are ever going to be one of those people. Right now, it feels as if the battle for human dignity is being waged on a micro level with these wins, and then boom, this powerful force of patriarchy sweeps in to try to destroy all the progress, with plenty of people egging it on. It's those people who are actually the most terrifying, because as we discussed in one of my very first podcasts, Hitler came to power democratically. He convinced people to put him in power. He didn't start off taking power, and he did that after being exposed for what he was. As video proof of how this trickles down, there was a clip shared by Jess Piper on Twitter of a woman waiting to get her breakfast in Missouri, overhearing a group of people laughing at the E. Jean Carroll case and saying that Trump said, and this is a quote of one of these people that she videotaped. This is the man speaking. This isn't what Trump said. This is a man saying his paraphrase of the E. Jean Carroll case. Well, Trump said, well, I didn't know her. All I done was rape her. Too much laughter. And the response was, at least he's honest. That is what the Trump supporters mean when they praise Trump for being honest. They like that he has no shame about abusing and violating other people. The E. Jean Carroll case is but one of many cases Trump might face in the near future. He is currently a criminal defendant, facing 34 felony criminal charges of falsifying business records in Manhattan. Special counsel Jack Smith is investigating the Trump-incited January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol, as well as, in a separate case, Trump's theft of highly classified documents found at Mar-a-Lago. And then in Georgia, the investigation into the Trump campaign's attempt to overturn the 2020 election is ongoing, with possible charges coming this summer. All of that is to say, it's not as if CNN didn't know who this man was and what he would bring to the table. It's also not as if Trump is some loony, gross uncle, though he has been described as a gross uncle by many women who have alleged sexual misconduct against him. What he really is, though, is a master propagandist. This is a man who will use any opportunity given to him to gaslight the nation and feed his dangerously resentful base a pre-mixed Kool-Aid cocktail of lies. It works. Last night, CNN broadcasted Trump's deliberate and conscious indifference to the safety of others. E. Jean Carroll's safety, other witnesses' safety, victims who choose to speak up around the country are now faced with living among people he reignited with his lies. And the safety of our democracy, ever so tenuous before last night, is now back in the crosshairs with incoming fire from all sides. The important takeaway from all of this toxicity is to do your best to support independent news like Politicus USA and the Daily Substack, because billionaires and trust fund boys are banding together to turn the media landscape into a megaphone for fascist propaganda like we saw last night. Elon has asked Tucker Carlson to do his show on Twitter, and Tucker is going to be doing that. So that's just another example of how the very worst elements of our society are being amplified by billionaires who are using those megaphones to poison democracy and destroy it for their own benefit. So what a great week. I'm so sorry that this topic has been really, it's gross, it's painful, but it has to be talked about. I think it was not talked about enough when this first came to light, and it's time to revisit it, and it's time for women to get some justice, and it's time for everyone to realize that the victimization of women in this violent sexual way is the very same energy that is being waged against other vulnerable minorities. This is the same energy that defends and weaponizes police against Black people and takes their lives. This is the same energy that's being weaponized against the LGBTQ community and against trans people. This is all the same toxic source. It's all coming from the same source, and if everyone needs to stand together strongly against it. And I would say this is a great day to do some signing up to volunteer for the upcoming election, and to, again, support independent media. And I would add PBS and the BBC to the list of good media outlets. There's plenty more. Democracy Now!, of course. There's so many. I don't want to leave people out by listing a few, but those are the few that came to mind immediately. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and I look forward to talking with you next time.